Did you use two different meanings for the word gunk? Did you use the word gunk? I'm saying the past tense, but I think I still use it. I've just been thinking about it recently. My mum and dad definitely used it in the sense of it being a blow or a setback. I mean, we all use gunk, I think, as in any kind of viscous, kind of semi-congealed, fluidy type stuff. Let's just say paint, for example, liquid glue all over, your hands or clothes or whatever like that. Oh, that's a bit of gunk. Oh, that's quite gunky that you got in there. But also, my mum and dad, and I was checking my wife, and her mum and dad definitely used it as well. Gunk, as in, oh, that's a bit of a gunk. Oh, that's a setback. That's a blow, an unexpected blow. Maybe not major, but just, oh, God, that's really, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, and it was never a good thing, a bite of gunk. Did you use it in that sense? Go on, just use it in that sense. Just pretend you did, because I'm trying to make out that I think these pods through, and there's a really minimal, infinitesimal, microscopic bit of kind of poetry or cohesion to the whole thing. I know there isn't, I know. But how you doing, folks? This is your fat ek. Rangers haven't won two straight games under Russell Martin. So while apparently nobody believes he's the man for the job just because he won one game on Saturday, which was actually his kind of fourth competitive win as Rangers manager, he's had two in the Champions League and two in the League Cup. So this would represent his first Europa League win, so a third competition before he goes into a must-win game at Livingston. He has to win a league game. No one cares that Hibs are a top-flight Scottish opposition. That was a League Cup, and he apparently can't go into October having not won an SPFL Premiership game because we may actually get relegated. We survived Aberdeen's game in hand last night, but they play before us again in the league this weekend. So if Aberdeen beat Motherwell 6-0 at Fir Park on Saturday night under their new manager, we will be bottom going into the new plastic in the new town on Sunday. But if Russell Martin wins against Genk, that will be two straight wins. Therefore, the undeniable beginnings of what you have to term a winning run. Preview pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out the latest Gersnet podcast, which will still be available, I think, if it's not been taken down on the Gersnet YouTube channel and across all other, I was going to say respectable streaming platform providers or whatever, but I don't know, and I've got to apologise again publicly to Frankie for really letting everybody down on Sunday's pod. It was Brian doing his best to host the thing, and it was Ross doing his best to be an honest, responsible, intelligent, articulate guest, and then there was a big fat Wayne just saying things like boobs and just being really pathetic. When I'm trying to talk about the union, but I know at times I sound a bit critical of the union bears. I think the reaction or the protests and all that on Saturday were a bit disproportionate, but at the same time, I totally respect their right to have those kind of protests and things. So I'm always trying to show that I'm not trying to come the old guy and the way I do that as I kind of prove that I am the most immature Rangers supporter in existence. Sorry, I'm really sorry, Frankie. I'm sorry to all Gersnet, but it was pathetic. And I don't mean that in a, oh, what am I like? I'm crazy, I'm wacky, but it was just embarrassing, and I'm sorry. I'm used to doing these pods on my own. You see, I've got too used to it. So when I go to Gersnet now, I'm like, well, hey, I've got pals, I can talk to folk, and I actually forget that there's people watching. I'm sponsored by Gersnet. And I'm also sponsored by Paracetamol. That's how it's pronounced. I mean, it's funny. He couldn't pronounce it right. Could he? He pronounced it Tylenol. And no, it's Paracetamol. So I'm sponsored by Paracetamol. I'm supporting Paracetamol against the POTUS, trying to distract from the Epstein files, obviously. But or maybe he's a backhander from one of the rivals to Paracetamol. But I'm going to support Paracetamol in the campaign against the most evil US president of all time by just upping my dosage. I don't have any kids anyway, but once you've had the kids, I think it's all right, according to President Trump. Anyway. But no, I'm having 15 paracetamol a day as it is. So I'm going to up my dosage to 30 or 40 a day just to keep them going, just to make up for the market share they'll lose because of the MAGAs over there that'll stop buying the old Tylenol, paracetamol, and it's healthy. I mean, taking 30, 40 paracetamol a day is every bit as healthy as injecting yourself with bleach to get rid of COVID, isn't it? So I would just it's a bit of politics here. I'm sponsored by paracetamol as well. My name's Alec Anderson. In your white lace and your wedding bells, you look the picture of contented new wealth. But from the onlooking fool who believed your lies, I wish this grave would open up and swallow me alive. For the bitterest pill is hard to swallow. The love I gave hangs in sad-coloured mocking shadows. The bitterest pill is mine to take. If I took it for 100 years, I couldn't feel anymore. My name's Alec Anderson. It's Shana Tova. It's too late. A belated Shana Tova for those celebrating Rosh Hashanah. The sun is now officially down on Wednesday, the 24th of September, 2025. But all the best. Happy New Year to those celebrating. And yes. There's only one thing to talk about, and that's the fact that I can't tell the difference between is it house sparrows and hedge sparrows? House sparrows and hedge sparrows. Crawley Town and Stevenage Borough. Can't tell the difference between that. And Ross on Jersey on Sunday when I was on that was mocking me. But Ross, he stays down South East thing. He stays down London way these days. So he's probably seen them all live, and that's why I can't tell the difference. I've not, because of the Rangers stuff and the podding for the last few years, I've not kept up with I used to sit and watch the English League highlights. I'd watch like every goal in England. The top 4 flights at least. Sometimes I would catch the non-league shows as well and see all the goals there in the various other leagues throughout Europe. But the more you absorb yourself in the Rangers stuff, then the less time you have to watch other goals. But I could never quite get my head round. They were new in my life, being an old man. I didn't grow up with Crawley or Stevenage, but I couldn't tell the difference between Crawley Town and Stevenage. But I think they both got some kind of red and white kit. One of them just wears white, one of them wears red. They're kind of, I don't know, M25-ish or southeast. They're down that way, as far as I'm concerned. They both come out the non-league. They might be back in non-league. They might have gone out of existence. Either of them these days. There's clubs going bust left, right, and centre. I don't really know. They could be in the Championship. They could be, ready to qualify for Europe next season. The two of them. I haven't really kept up with what's happening in the English scene in the Premier League. Never mind the leagues below that. But I could never tell them apart. I could never. Do you know what? I think Crawley Town, it was Stevenage Borough. I think they dropped the borough, but they were still nicknamed the borough officially. But I could never tell the difference between them. House martins and swallows. I think I remember being this kind of cottage thing that was called a bothy. Is there anything called a bothy that actually is a bothy and it isn't just somebody being totally pretentious about a proper, kind of Airbnb type made for tourists facility? Well, we were in one of them. And it was in the middle of a field somewhere between Barnsley and Sheffield. Absolutely beautiful. One summer there for 10 days. It was just tremendous, really spacious. And it was, there was all these birds that were at night time just flying about. And there was swallows, but I had the wee bird, the book of the bird, and I just still couldn't tell. Try to watch them, I couldn't tell the difference. I think it's house martins and swallows. I couldn't tell what one was what. Can't tell the difference between them. The Bronte sisters, I know. I mean, there's a couple of them died when they were younger, and a lot of infant mortality. Or maybe they died in their 30s or whatever. But they didn't write the famous books. That's what I'm saying. Bronte sisters didn't write the famous books. I know you've got Charlotte and Emily and Anne. I even know about the Currer Bell and Acton Bell thing. Their pseudonyms. I've read The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I've read Wuthering Heights. I've read The Professor, not a Villette, and obviously Jane Eyre is one of the greatest books ever written, and I've read that, and I've watched all sorts of dramatisations of these famous books, and I still can't tell what one's what. I still can't remember what Bronte wrote, what one of their famous books. That's my honeymoon. I went to Haworth, where they were bought, or they lived and all that. I went to Haworth. I actually stayed there for I had the honeymoon like before the wedding. We'd been staying together for a year before we get married, and our wedding was like a Wednesday, and we still all were kind of student mates at that point in time, so we just all went out on a Wednesday night, I think. But we actually had the honeymoon beforehand, it was in Rome. Went to different, but went to Milan and Verona and somewhere else. Where else did we go in Italy? Milan, Verona, Bergamo, and went down to Rome as well. A few days down in Rome. So really, I watched Roma the night. I just got the blessing for the big fella. So Roma coming to play Rangers at Ibrox in this season's Europa League, and I just caught a bit of their game in Nice. They only won 2-1 in the Côte d'Azur against Nice. We won 4-1 there last season. With a manager that we wanted rid of at that time as well. So it's no bother to Rangers, but I know it's Roma who I'm really looking forward to seeing for the first time in my life. But they've got an away kit this season. It's all white with like green and gold trim. And they've got a Republic of Ireland centre forward playing up front. I mean, what's happening here? That's Roma just getting really bitter. I don't know why they were event against Rangers as a club and as a support, but that's what I had But we went after we actually get married. It was like later on, maybe the following week we'd go for our respective works, and we just went away for a wee week, just travelled down south. We spent all the money before the actual wedding, so we went. Oh, we'll go to Haworth, where the Brontes lived. We did the parsonage and everything, but that's enough details about the honeymoon. It's like missionary, the parsonage. I'm just trying to be having a laugh there. No, but the only Bronte I can actually remember for sure, I know for sure, is Branwell. Bronte, the brother, the Branwell, the brother who the only thing he wrote was IOUs as he went about in Haworth, getting absolutely pissed and owing folk lots of money, which coincidentally is what I did, what we did in our honeymoon. But I don't know, I can't tell the difference between the Brontes, the Congos. You've got the DRC and the Republic of Congo, and I used to just think folk were just dropping the D from Republic of Congo when they're talking about Republic of Congo, but it's two different countries. Like China, but they drop the People's Republic or Democratic, the stuff they always shove in the front of these countries. I thought they just drop all that and say, I thought the same thing when folk were talking about Congo, Republic of Congo. I thought, that's just short for the DRC, which used to be Zaire. Scotland's first opponents in the colour television World Cups era. But no, it's two different countries. Like the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, it's got about 112 million folk, and Republic of Congo's only got about 6 million folk. But it's eventually there's there's Kinshasa and there's Brazzaville, Kinshasa and so I just get them confused as well. I can't quite work it. I can't tell the difference between them efficiency and efficacy. I've looked into it. You hear folks saying efficacy, and you're thinking, is that not just the same as efficiency? And you look it up, and it's something to do with the efficiency of efficiency. When you look up the meaning of efficacy, I can't tell the difference between what the two of them actually mean. And you get Heracles and Hercules. I could chuck in Hurricane there as well, the 3 football clubs, but I didn't know about Hurricane because Hurricane gets such a cool. Hurricane are named after a balloon, so obviously I've got a big tie-in with them. Hurricane, it's the coolest badge ever, and it's the coolest stadium. It's the coolest kit. That's what I would do. Never mind being a hipster by going to Super Classic. Oh yeah, I went to the Bombonera, and I went to see Boca against River. No. I went there. I went hipster to the hipsters. I went over to Buenos Aires and I went to see Hurricane. I didn't. I'm just projecting. I went over to see Hurricane. That's a stadium you'd have to go to. It's a cool Vélez Sarsfield as well. I would love to go and see Vélez Sarsfield, and I'd like to go and see the thing we project the Avellaneda racing against Independiente. That'd be absolutely sensational. But if I'm just actually bored already, I've never been. I've never seen any Argentinian club playing, but I'm already bored of the Super Classico. But I can't tell the difference between Heracles and Hercules. Eventually it's Heracles at Almelo. Almelo, they're a Dutch team, and then Hercules Alicante, they're Spanish. I think David Trezeguet, he used to, scored missed the penalty in the 2006 World Cup final, but scored the golden goal, silver goal, whatever it was, scored the winner in the Euro 2000 final against Italy both times, and could actually have played for Argentina David Trezeguet played for Juventus, played for Monaco. You know, and he scored against Barcelona in the Nou Camp. I think when Hercules of Alicante were up in the top flight in Spain. I think like a bit of a yo-yo team. Scotland played at their ground as well, didn't we? Played at their ground against Spain. David Goodwillie, I think, scored the penalty. And less said about that, the better. But I can't tell the difference between like Crawley and Stevenage. And there's just things in life you know about them, but you don't know enough. You know, little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and you get them confused. Like my arse and my elbow. I can't tell the difference between my arse and my elbow either. I can't tell one of them apart for the other. And when I was 12 to kind of 13 years old, that kind of 11 to 13 years old, 11 to 12 and a half, when I was a young man at that age, when I was just starting to drink in what I discovered was one of my favourite subjects of all time, which is European club competition. In consecutive seasons in the secondary and the tertiary, it was always fluctuating. If the UEFA Cup or the Cup Winners' Cup, they were always kind of fluctuating, orbiting around the sun that was the European Cup, deciding what one was second best. But it was the UEFA Cup 81-82 Dundee United. And the Cup Winners' Cup 82-83 Aberdeen, the two halves of the new firm, both at home. They both beat Belgian clubs. They put 5 goals past Belgian clubs in the home leg of European competition. Dundee United put 5 goals past Winterslag. Winterslag, a big W to start anyway. Winterslag, this Belgian team in 81-82. Then the following season, 82-83, Aberdeen put 5 goals past Waterschei, another Belgian team. At home in European competition, and that was a semi-final of the Cup Winners' Cup. Most folk think the semi-final was Bayern Munich when Aberdeen won the Cup Winners' Cup in 82-83 under Alex Ferguson, but no, it was actually Bayern was a quarter-final. The semi-final was Waterschei, and I remember it because it was live on the telly, and back in the days, kids, there wasn't a lot of live games on the telly. You've heard that all before, sorry, but so it was on STV. I remember sitting watching that, and we were all cheering Aberdeen. Everybody was cheering on, all the Rangers fans were cheering on Aberdeen, well, most days. Back in 1983, incredible to think. But they destroyed them. Aberdeen absolutely annihilated them in the first leg. I think they lost the second leg 1-0, but they won at home 5-1 against this side Waterschei. And so it was like, for me, 2 Belgian teams. One was called Waterschei, one was called Winterslag, and both halves of the new firm had put 5 goals past it, and it turned out they were both for the same tune, virtually. I think Waterschei was in Genk, and Winterslag's a suburb of Genk, but I still couldn't. It was like too similar. I couldn't tell. But luckily, later on that decade, only just 5 years later, 1988, the two of them merged. They became a new firm, and they turned themselves into Genk, which just sounded exactly the same as Gent. So, and Genk had a blue kit on, and Gent had a blue kit, and they're both for Belgium. I don't know how. I think it's 80 miles apart or something like that. The distance. They're both in Flanders, but that's half the country. So it wasn't really making. I don't know how close. I don't know who their actual local rivals are, but I just thought in terms of, the sound, the foreign, the world is. I mean, everybody knows the difference between like Sevilla and Real Betis and Rangers and Celtic and Liverpool and Everton, because this is a different kind of. Derby and an oral derby, Genk and Gent. And remember, there was the case of the Liverpool fans. I was talking about this in Jersey the other night. It was Liverpool fans. I don't even know what one it was. This is what I'm talking about. Liverpool were playing Genk or Gent in Europe because they're both in Europe quite kind of regularly. They've both got a wee European history, kind of hitting the quarterfinals rarely, but they've both done that. And Liverpool played one of them, and a crowd of their supporters went to the other. They went to Gent when the game was in Genk, or vice versa, and it was a big laugh. But I would have been one of the supporters if that happened to Rangers, if we were playing them away from home, because I can't get my head. I just can't tell the difference. And they're both blue tops. I think Genk, who I think we're playing, they've got white shorts, blue tops, white shorts, and blue socks. Although they'll probably be playing in a away kit tomorrow night. And if they play in a yellow, I think the third kit is kind of yellow gold with black shorts. That is the Waterschei kit. It was quite Borussia Dortmund back in the day. So maybe that's a wee tribute to them. I don't know. Because Rangers played Dundee for the first time, and I'll talk to you about that later. The most amazing thing about Genk is they're a modern merger that's worked. To me, maybe it's something that happens all over the world. Probably, Hibs and Hearts were supposed to merge in the 80s, or was it the 80s and 90s, the early 90s, 80s? Wallace Mercer, can't really remember. I do care. It was a major thing, but that was like no chance. That'd be a disaster. That'd be an absolute nightmare. Dundee and Dundee United were going to merge. Oh, that absolute flipping it. No, there's always talk of that, and it just gets thrown out. I would never want to see Dundee and Dundee United merging. I'm actually quite upset that Dundee are trying to get a new ground. I want them to stay in the same street but different grounds. I love all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, Dundee actually are a merger. Dundee come from, is it East End and what's those old boys, our boys, West boys. I can't remember what the other two teams, but there's a great picture. Up with the Bonnets is the book. I can't remember the author's name. It's a great book, The History of Dundee. There's a cracking picture right at the start of that. You get it on Tinternet if you look it up, and is it the ground at West Craigie, where Dundee used to play from, when they just merged, and they play Rangers as Dundee for the first time up in Dundee, and it's a league game, start of the season, and both teams are getting a photograph taken because it's an auspicious occasion. 1880s, 1890s, sorry my dates, I don't really know, no offence to Dundee fans, but Dundee are wearing blue and white stripes. They're very light blue and white, but that's the East End kit, one of the teams that merged to become Dundee. I thought, like, the turn of the millennium and all the times that Dundee have had the white top with the light blue stripes, it was a kind of Albi Celeste thing. It was a kind of testimony, a tribute to the Argentinian players that they had in the kind of Ivano Bonetti period at the turn of the millennium. I thought that was a wee marketing thing, but no, it's actually they're one of the clubs that merged to become Dundee. So Dundee are actually from. I mean Aberdeen. There's like 3 different clubs merged to form Aberdeen. Ayr United, Ayr FC, and Ayr Parkhouse. But this is all back in the early 1900s, maybe even back into Victorian periods. All the mergers for Scottish teams are, probably hundreds of English teams as well. But later on, we got a bit snobby, didn't we? Kind of into the middle of the 20th century and onwards. And I'm definitely like that as well. A merger's always, oh no, I can't see that working. Dagenham and Redbridge, I can't see that working. That's not going to happen. I mean, we look what happened with Inverness. It's still up in the air as to whether that was a success or not. Got a Scottish Cup at it, a League Cup final, but the Inverness Caledonian, did it really work? It's generally felt that Inverness Cali kind of took over within that merger. But there you go. The good thing would be Genk, who we are that's definitely the team that we are playing tomorrow night. Is that it's a merger. It's a 1988 they merged, and it's been really successful. They've still got the same ground as well. I mean, I've looked it up. The thing is, it's like the other thing is it's KRC Genk and KAA Gent. And I only know that because I've looked it up about 25 times in the last couple of days before I did this podcast. It's just K something something, K something something. But the R in KRC Genk stands for racing. And I can maybe get my head around that, racing Genk. The whole point is I need to see them. I need to experience it. I need to be something that makes me, hopefully it's them not destroying us. If they destroy us 5-0, I'll never forget that was Genk we were playing. But you need to actually see these teams in the flesh. It's more Belgians. I know we're always playing Belgians these days. I mean, we're picking Club Brugge in that friendly in July, and then, well, we're not going to forget in a hurry about Club Brugge did to us in the Champions League playoffs this season with Union Saint-Gilloise earlier this year as well. And this is us now. We've got Genk, and it's like rubbing it in our face that I never got to see Standard Liège and Club Royal Antwerp, 2 European club finalists that I've still to get off my list of seeing every club that's reached a European club final, and I'm getting down into the 20s. I've only got 20 odd left out of the 100 odd that I've yet to see in the flesh. But that was 2, and we got the 2 of them during. I know there's other folk during COVID felt as if they had problems that were kind of COVID related or to do with the lockdown and losing their job and stuff like that, and dying and stuff. I mean, I didn't get to see 2 European finalists. Why people no feeling sorry for me? But just we got Genk, and they've never reached a European final. But the one thing about Genk is the furthest they ever got in Europe was the quarter final. Now, it was 2016, I think, 2015, 16. I'm not sure. I need to check. Maybe it's because it was the last 16. Maybe getting myself confused. But they did get to the quarterfinals of European competition. Is a Europa League. 2016-17, they lost to Celta Vigo in the quarterfinals. That's the only time they've ever reached a quarterfinal. Gent have reached a few quarterfinals. Gent are like 100 years older almost. I think they were formed in the early 1900s. I don't know how close it is, but they're Gent and they were formed. But they've only won the league once and the cup once in that whole kind of century and a bit long history. Whereas Genk, who were only formed in 1988, they've won the Belgian League 4 times and the Belgian Cup 5 times. It's actually incredible. But the one time Genk, who we're playing tonight, it'll be by the time you see this pod, it'll be Thursday. They got to quarterfinals of European competition for the only time in their history. Do you know who they beat in the last 16 to get into that quarterfinal? To get the furthest they've ever got in European competition? Gent. Genk played Gent in the last 16 of European competition in 2016-17. How am I supposed to get this? It's just all... It's all kind of merging into one. It's really quite hard to follow. But they've won quite a lot. They've won, it's just less than 40 years old. They've won 4 Belgian titles and 5 Belgian Cups. The last time they won the Belgian title, Genk, the team we're playing this Thursday night, was in 2018-2019 when their manager was Philippe Clement. Who I think he won the cup with them as a player, Philippe Clement, and then he won the league with them as manager. Just like he did better both at Bruges. I think he won 2 league titles with Club Bruges as manager. I don't know if he won as much as that when he was a player at Club Bruges. He probably won more than that. But Bruges and Genk feature very highly. So did Germinal Beerschot, or Beerschot, because he comes from Antwerp, does Philippe Clement, but let's not confuse ourselves there. So he's big, and they've also got Cyril Dessers. He played at Genk for us. He was born in Belgium. Cyril Dessers. He played in Belgium, although he's a Nigerian international. He played for Genk. He was a Genk player for 2 seasons, but he did so well in his first season there that he got the loan to Feyenoord, who didn't take up the option. He goes to Cremonese, and then he comes to us, to Cyril Dessers. But he's played at Genk. We also Alec McLeish he was manager at Genk for a season. I know you've maybe seen the Rangers review. I always like to say, I don't want to I like to give attribution. I like to attribute stuff that's out there on the news. I might accidentally mention stuff that I've seen in the Rangers review, which I do watch pretty religiously. The free shows, the Rangers review. That's my main source, I would say, of Rangers news. Now that you don't actually have a Rangers news, but honestly, cross my fingers, cross my heart, whatever. I did know this before. You knew it as well before I saw the Rangers review interviewing the Genk supporter journalist guy yesterday, who was very good. But Alec McLeish was manager there for, I think it was just under a season. Did he get the full season? I'm not really sure. I remember getting the full season. And Thomas Buffel, who was managed by Alec McLeish at Rangers, wasn't he? Aye, because he doubles back. He does the wee twist in the ball through for the goal that wins us the league in Helicopter Sunday when Eck was the manager at Easter Road. Of course, he was man. Of course, Thomas Buffel played for Alec McLeish, Jesus, at Rangers. But Thomas Buffel was an absolute legend at Genk. Genk spent 9 years playing for Genk, the team that we're playing tomorrow night, who've got an all-blue stadium, which is like kind of 4-sided stadium, and has got about 2,000 smaller capacity than Gent's stadium, which was also fairly brand new. I think Genk's current stadium was built maybe late 90s, early 2000s, and Gent's got a new stadium, even though they're a much older club. They got a new stadium like 2013, just a few years afterwards, so it's kind of state of the art as well, and it's all blue. And if the 2 stadiums were empty, the Genk one has got racing across the top tier, the one stand, and I think Gent have only got single tier stands, but it's slightly bigger capacity because it's just murder. It's absolute murder. Alec McLeish, Thomas Buffel, and he was also manager, or currently is manager, has been for a couple of seasons, of Young Genk, which is young Ajax. No, that's the young team, the reserves. He's manager there, so he's responsible for bringing through a talent we shall talk about in due course. The one good thing is, the one way to really tell them apart is Gent are the buffalo. They're the buffalo, and their badge is a Native American tribal chief in the traditional, Native American headgear that you used to watch in the westerns and all that when you were a kid. It's very strange. Whereas Genk's badge is just like a kind of G on a badge-shaped shield type of thing. It's very bland. But their nickname is the Smurfs. The Smurf in that's one of their nicknames, but it's the Smurfs. So you get the Smurfs or the Buffaloes. We're playing the Smurfs tomorrow night. You're not really going to forget that in a hurry. Hopefully, we'll be able to tell the difference now that we actually get to see. I find getting to see teams is one way of remembering them. preferable is if they do something bad to you. That's not the way you want to think about them. We had, apart from the fact that we're playing Genk after playing Bruges in 3 different games this season, Club Bruges and Union Saint-Gilloise back at the end of January. Nico Raskin has been the main man. The best player probably this year for Rangers, and at the centre of all the controversy. He's been the symbol of everything that's right or wrong or is going wrong with Russell Martin's Rangers reign. The Belgians could yet do for Russell Martin, him having followed a Belgian into the job full time anyway. It was you'd Barry and a Belgian before that. Union Saint-Gilloise beat Genk on Sunday. Scored a last-minute goal against them, and Genk had lost. They lost at home on Sunday, Genk, and Union Saint-Gilloise, the reigning champions. They won the Belgian league last season, and they lost at home to Charleroi last Wednesday. Genk, so they're in a bad state. They're third bottom of the Belgian Pro League. We're discussing this on Jersnet on Sunday. I'm sorry if I'm repeating anything that I said there, but they've played 8 games so far this season. Genk, they've won 2, they've drawn 2, and they've lost 4. So they're in a bad bit of form. Last season, they finished top of the regular season, the first 30 games in the Belgian league. They finished top of that, and then it goes into their kind of post-split, if you like, the championship playoff that they have, and they ended up finishing third behind Union Saint-Gilloise and Club Bruges. So that wasn't very good for them. But this season, it's not going at all. And their manager, Torsten Fink, who is it I'm thinking about? There's somebody. It's no Bat Fink. There's somebody else I'm thinking about. A fictional character, Torsten Fink, Barton Fink. Is that the thing with brothers, Coen brothers? Is it Barton Fink? They did anyway. There's Torsten Fink. He's a defensive midfielder. Torsten Fink. He started his career. He's German. He started his career at Wattenscheid. No, they're Belgian. Remember, they don't exist anymore. They're now Genk. Wattenscheid. No, Winterslag. No, Wattenscheid. They're German. Wattenscheid, a German team. The Winterslag and Wattenscheid, they're Genk now. The two of them they're getting. He's managed in like Japan, Cyprus, United Arab Emirates, I think Estonia, something like that, Switzerland. And obviously Belgium. He's in Belgium now, but there's a couple of other countries I think he's managed in that I haven't quite managed to remember. But he's been all over the place. Has Torsten Fink as a manager. Did very well, as I say, last season. I think he was in charge for the full season, where they finished top of the regular Belgian Pro League season and ended up finishing third, which got them into the playoff rounds. Was it the playoff round, I think, for the Europa League, where they played Lech Poznan, and they lost 2-1 at home. So that's no good, is it? They can't be that good. We've got a chance here. Lech Poznan beat Genk 2-1 at home, but it didn't really matter because that was the second leg. And in Poznan, in the first leg, Genk had won 5-1. They won 5-1. Away for him against Lech Poznan, who we beat under Steven Gerrard, behind closed doors, COVID season, that same group stage where we had Standard Liège, from which we would qualify and get Royal Antwerp in the Europa League back in 2020, 2021. But they won 5-1 away from home, did Genk, and you will have heard the chap on the Rangers Review yesterday saying that Genk this season, not very good, but despite the fact they're third bottom of the table, and they've lost twice as many games as they've won, they've got the best possession stats in the league. And do you remember Russell Martin getting mocked for saying that we had the most shots on goal in the league, despite the fact everybody thinks we haven't had a shot on goal all season, really, in the league. It's the same kind of situation. They're very, very similar. And Torsten Fink is under pressure. Torsten Fink played against us for Bayern in another a horrible omen. We played Bayern in 1999-2000. Champions League, I was at a game at Ibrox. Jörg Albert scores early doors. Champions League group stages under Dick Advocaat. Place is going nuts. And of course, I remember the ooh and ah. We went close a few times, and I'm thinking, this is Bayern. This is Germans. And then it was at Rocky Santa Cruz. It was deflected. No, it was somebody. He came off Rocky Santa Cruz's backside. Who hit the free kick? Can't remember. You can remind me, but they equalised practically the last kick off a bum cheek in the game that night. Did Bayern? Well, Torsten Fink was on the bench that night. He went from Wattenscheid to Bayern, I think, and he had quite a few years at Bayern, but he ended up getting demoted to Bayern's reserve team. He ended up playing for this. No, it's usually he played for the Bayern amateurs, the second team, and then he comes up and he plays for the. He did it the other way about. He kind of fell out of favour, but he played in the return game in that Champions League group stage, that infamous return game where Rangers hit bar, hit post, hit everything, but Oliver Kahn hit Michael Moles and kind of half ruined his career. Still come back and scored some great goals for us, Michael Moles, but he was phenomenal, and that was definitely he was phenomenal. Michael Moles, one of the greatest players I've ever seen in a Rangers jersey, but his career just got cut short because of that horrible, shitty, deliberately try to put him out of the game interception from Oliver Kahn on the night, and so Torsten Fink played in that game, so give him a wee boo for that tomorrow night. The Genk manager, top of the regular season, third bottom of the Pro League just now. They've played Champions League group stages, they've played Europa League group stages. The last time they were in Europe, they weren't in Europe last season, Genk, but the season before that, they were in the Conference League group stages for the first time. Like they make they'll get through the last 32, that kind of thing. I say they got to a quarter final in 2016-17, beating Ghent in the last 16. Insane, but they are regulars in European competition, so this isn't them kind of, it isn't like landing in the moon as far as you're concerned. This is something they are used to. It's an arena, the European arena is something they are used to. They're not going to be blown away by the noise at Ibrox, which is hopefully going to be a kind of pro Rangers noise. Just before I go any further and actually try and get to a point here, I'll do my snagging items. I mentioned this in Jersey. I got the wrong Sony thingy Bravia advert, Sony television. The golf balls coming on to the game, the protest from the Union Bells 10 minutes into the game against Hibs on the Saturday evening. I thought it was reminding me of the Sony Bravia advert with the paint tins exploding all over the house and estate in Tory Glen. It's weird, isn't it? Because they actually had one, the Sony Bravia, before that. It was a whole lot of little bouncy balls, the same size as the balls that were getting thrown on the park on Saturday, and they were bouncing them through. I looked it up. There's 250,000 bouncy wee plastic balls were released down a street in San Francisco, because obviously the hills, very hilly streets in San Francisco, bullet and all that, and it was really good. The beautiful advert as the balls are all bouncing down the hill. But San Francisco 49ers, maybe it just shows you subliminally that's working away at you. You remember the product, but it's actually the bouncy balls thing that was working away at you, but you're thinking about something else. Or I'm just stupid, basically. That's definitely true as well. But it was the wrong advert. It was the right product, Sony Bravia television, but it was the wrong one of their adverts. I was remembering, and I was talking about Jonathan Glazer. He's famous for doing. I don't know if he did the one with the bouncy balls. He definitely did the one with the explosions of paint around Tory Glen. It's because the television. It was all about how beautiful the colour will look on this beautiful screen that you get in the Sony Bravia television. So they're nice and colourful in the adverts. But the one in Tory Glen was filmed by Jonathan Glazer, who's famous for various movies, No Sexy Beast and the Zone of Interest and all that. And I mentioned also Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson. And it's just, I think I might have mentioned this in the post-match reaction pod, but I should have mentioned it much more clearly, because it's quite a thing. I'll stand at the back of the Copeland Road stand or the Broomland Road stand when I'm doing these post-match reaction pods after a game at Ibrox. And I'll make all sorts of film references in those podcasts, but particularly when I'm standing at the back of the Broomland, I'm just going to leave there and go along, the end of Edmondson Drive, but basically I'm going into Shield Hall Road, past the police station, and I'll pass the McDonald's and the KFC. I'll go past them, and walk up past the wee Rangers. So that wee dual carriageway that extends from Edmondson Drive up through the roundabout at the police station, Helen Street Police, and then it's the wee Rangers Social Club. Sorry, before you get to that, you get the wee Rangers Social Club on your right hand side. It's actually Scarlett Johansson was driving a box van past the wee Rangers Social Club. One of the scenes in Under the Skin, she stops and she picks up a guy who's wearing a Hibs top outside the wee Rangers Social Club, and it's weird because he's got a Glasgow accent, but he's wearing that Hibs top. I think there's that kind of confused. Jonathan Glazer would know, but I think he's deliberately confusing the kind of ethnicity, the religion, the whatever, round about an Old Firm game. And Scarlett Johansson's driving down Copeland Road in a box van. she's driving up and down Shield Hall Road and all that, and picking up guys wearing Hibs tops. It's an amazing film. It's behind the paywall now on Amazon Prime, and I also would have watched that again. But I would definitely give that a watch if you possibly can. So that was quite amazing. I should really have mentioned that. There was something else I didn't mention. What was it? Little balls on the pitch. The red sky at night. That's right. I started off talking. I'm doing it again, forgetting that again. I don't know why this is so kind of ephemeral or whatever. It won't stick in my mind. But I started off. I did my preview pod on the Friday night, saying that it would be, it would be light when we went into because we're getting to that time of year. It would be light when we went into the game on Saturday night, on 5:45 kick-off, and it would be dark when we come out. But hopefully our moods had changed, the opposite way about. And I was trying to be, again, pathetic attempts to be poetic or even in any way interesting. And I started to mention in the post-match reaction pod that it was actually dull to the point of darkness. And of course, the protest going on outside when we entered the stadium on Saturday evening. But I failed to finish that off by pointing out it's at half time. We're 2-0 up at half time. That's the final score. We've scored our first goals in 4 games. The Nico Raskin thing's been resolved happily. Everybody's getting on great. And the sun come up. The sun was just come out, and it's setting in the west, and that shines. I'm sitting in the main stand, the south stand, if you like, and there's the gap. You've got the corners are filled in on the north side of the stadium, but the corners are open for the main stand, so you always get to see some beautiful sunsets over towards Dumbarton, basically. But the sun was kind of glinting in my eye just as Rangers are winning 2-0. It was like a reject. And by the time we got to the stadium, the sky had gone kind of red sky, blue sky, and a bit of white cloud, red, white, and blue sky. But when by the time we came out to the stadium, it was still light actually, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, pathetic fallacy in the right sort of way. But red sky at night, Russell, red sky at full time. Russell still feels a bit undermined, perhaps. Sorry, troops. I've just been watching a bit of football there on the telly, watching Roma in Nice and thinking about ourselves last season. Another thing I was talking about, and something this is relevant, or this is taking us into the main point of this pod, honest troops. I was watching, or I was talking about in that post-match reaction pod on Saturday night, seeing the Smiths at the Magnum Arena, like the only concert I've ever been to in my life, really, and as far as I'm concerned, it's the only concert that ever existed. I had a great time once, and I just memorialise it and fetishise it and just make it all about me by talking about the time I happened to see. I didn't even deliberately set out to go and see that concert. It was only because of the persuasiveness of a friend of mine. I still don't go to, I've been to about a dozen concerts in my life. Really, just all my energy and money goes into watching live football. But I saw the Smiths at the Magnum Leisure Centre in Irvine, by the way, because of the maternity hospital that's always been there under one name or another. That's where I was born. That's where Nicola Sturgeon was born. And that's where Russell Martin's dad was born. So that's quite a wee connection there. But it was the 40th anniversary. It was Monday, the 22nd of September was a Monday, but it was the Sunday, 22nd of September 1985, that I had gone to see the Smiths in an amazing concert. And I rattled on about this so much on that podcast that somebody got in touch with me. I won't put it in case they're, but you can see it under the replies to Saturday's post-match reaction pod. Somebody's got in touch and said, I just watched that concert on YouTube. It was 14 years after I was born, that concert. I just watched it on YouTube. It was great. I'm like, what? It hadn't even occurred to me to just, I types in Smith's Magnum Leisure Centre, Irvine, 22nd September 1985. Up it comes, and snagging item straight away. I'd talked about how it started with the Montagues and the Capulets, the Prokofiev playing, and the kind of floodlights on our faces, the faces of the audience, so you couldn't see them setting up. Then it would just stop. The lights went off, and the lights went down, and the stage lights come on, and the Prokofiev went off, and there they were. The Smiths were standing there, and Morrissey, I was saying, was just kind of droll. I went, hi, yeah. But when I watched it back, I watched a bit of it back straight away the other day. He's actually like, how are you doing? Oh, we're here. He's quite charged up and quite... And this is the problem. This is the thing. This same thing happened to me what would it be? God, 15 years ago or something. The first European game I went to, which of course to me is even more precious, 7th November 1984, just less than a year prior to that Smiths concert. Rangers playing Inter in the UEFA Cup. We're 3-0 down for the first leg in the San Siro. I'm so sorry to be so boring to talk about this again, but we won 3-1 at Ibrox. Nearly did it. It was a great night. And I was just like, but it wasn't. It was a time when there's an article in the latest When Saturday Comes about it. I think 85, 86. There was a TV strike. There was no coverage, no highlights of a lot of games that were played in Britain at that point in time, because there was a fallout between the football authorities and the broadcasters about negotiations. But so it was never. I never saw the highlights. I saw the highlights of the first leg. I remember sitting watching them as live. The previous or two midweeks before that, but it was never, the second leg was never shown on telly. So all I ever had was my memories of it. And then I don't know when it would be. Maybe around about 2005. 2010 probably. I think I suddenly discovered it had been on Rai Uno, the Italian station, had been there filming the game, and you could watch the whole game on YouTube. And I'm like, what the hell? I had no idea, and I was scared because you think, is it going to ruin it? Is it going to ruin the memory? Sometimes it's better than that thing. It's actually better that you've mythologized something. The memory you have is better than seeing the reality of what actually happened, because obviously I was only 16 at the time. I'd never been to a concert before. You just get used to getting out about the house without your mother and father. Going to somewhere as far away as Irvine, and being out that late on a Sunday night, whatever. Still, everything was really exciting. Anything was exciting in the days when you're that age. So maybe I'd blown it out of all proportion. But I watched the first, kind of 5, 6 songs of that concert. I'm going to get around to watching the rest of it. But you could feel the energy. You could feel electric. It's absolutely scintillating. You can watch it yourself. It's on YouTube. I put a link to it and underneath on the post-match reaction pod. But it was. But I remember watching the Rangers against Inter, and the one thing I'd always thought about that game was when we went 3-1 up. Away goals rule in those days, and Inter had scored quite early after we opened the scoring quite early, but we come back to go 3-1 up, and Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, a two-time European footballer, a two-time Ballon d'Or, guy scored in a World Cup final and stuff like that. He strolls up, or would score in a World Cup final. He strolls up the park, beats 3 guys, and pings one off the stanchion of the bar on the post. And I felt, and for years after I'd been to that game as like a 15-year-old, I'm telling folk, that was just to let us know, we'll let you have your night, but if we wanted to, we could probably blow you away. I thought, all right, that's, But I watched it back, and it was like, no, Inter really needed to score again, because Rangers were absolutely pummeling them. It was actually better than I remembered. Rangers were destroying them. Some of the tackles were horrific, but in the best possible way. This is Inter we're talking about, so it was no guilt to be felt. Bergame, I think was Franco Baresi's brother playing against us as well. Double check that. But we absolutely hammered into them. It was desperation. That was the best that Inter could manage. Was managing to hit the post, managing to hit the woodwork. We were threatening to overturn the tie altogether. So it was even better than I actually remembered. But sometimes you get that thing. I remember a thing about the game. Liam Brady was playing for Inter, and I remember he's going to take a corner, and there was a guy trying to spit on him. A Rangers supporter tried to spit on him. That's something that wasn't it. Things like that, the reality sometimes, something could be going on that you don't remember because, life was a bit harder then, you're used to that kind of stuff. It's only when you see it back that you think, you watch some old comedies and that, and it's horrifically sexist. It's a lot of dodgy humour, borderline racist or out and out racist, and you think, God, I used to love that programme. I had no idea that they were saying that stuff. You just didn't understand how bad it was. So you're worried about that kind of thing, but I think I might be doing the reverse. I can only really do the reverse when it comes to Russell Martin's Rangers tenure. This could be the end for Russell Martin. This game tonight against Genk. This is it. He's won the game on Saturday, and I've just basically convinced myself it's up and away from now on. But it's kind of how Beale went. This is the kind of game that got Philippe Clement sacked. There's that wee thing where they win a game. There's defeats, there's humiliations, And then there's one defeat too many. It's that's they've got to go. They've got to go. But they just get that little chance, and Michael Beale beat Real Betis at home. He had a really narrow win against Motherwell as well. I think they beat Livingston in the League Cup. And then Aberdeen come and scalp us 3-1, and you're thinking, "Oh, that's that right." I wasn't even expecting us to get gubbed in this game. It's just Philip Clement loses to Queen's Park, one of the most tragic results of all time. You're thinking could quite easily just be sacked right now, but maybe worth just seeing if there's a bounce. But if this is the nadir, and it's from this moment on, it was all upwards because he suddenly realised what the job was all about. It was a defeat so bad that they'd resolved. They found a new resolve, and on they went. And we went to Tynecastle and won 3-1 without being too convincing. Thinking, okay, maybe he's going to stumble through towards the end of the season, and then we get beat 2-0, going on 3 or 4-0 off St Mirren the following week at home, and that's all right. That's it. He's away. You just knew, you just get, and I want to get to that point when before we sack a manager. You definitely know. But this is how it happens. It's just we lose 2-0 to Hearts. There's been the 6-0 humiliation, obviously, and 9-1 in aggregate against Club Brugge. He can't really go 0-0 with Celtic. That's kind of. But we've lost 2-0 to Hearts. That's terrible, awful under Russell Martin. He's got to go. He's beat Hibs. That's fine. All right, okay. Well, he's got a few very winnable games coming up now, and no, Genk beat us at home as well. That's him. He's done. I know a lot of people think he's. Myself included, I think the owners are going to do everything they can to keep him in the job till the end of the season. At least I think it's about more than just Russell Martin. I think it's about the new owners making their mark, that they won't be pushed around by the support. But I don't know if it's my kind of clear. I've got very clear recollections of Walter's first spell as manager. The first few games for Walter Smith as manager, or I've got a less kind of rose-tinted remembrance of Steven Gerrard's draw-strewn first season as Rangers manager, or maybe it's a sudden romanticisation of possession-based football by myself, the kind of romanticisation of possession-based football that's not been seen since the only two words you could hear in any kind of hipster bar, cafe or barbers were tiki and taka, but I think I've kind of pre-mythologised Russell Martin's reign as Rangers manager. To some extent, I think it's a desperation really to believe, but I'm more than aware of the kind of angry stuff right now, the horrible reality of his Ibrox management beginnings. It's so much so that I kind of wonder how all these doubters and protesters will ever again be able to trust themselves. And we win the treble this season, and we probably win the Europa League as well. I can see this is going to turn the corner. I can see this is going to be absolutely fantastic. These people that are actually mounting protests against Russell Martin, they're going to be so embarrassed come the end of the season. So far, my only kind of evidence that it will get better is that it was always meant to be this bad. At the beginning of the season, it was always meant to be this bad. That's what I keep talking about. This is part of the plan. How the hell is that evidence, though, that it will get better? It really isn't. So I think there's something going on with me. I've got to kind of admit to. I don't know. Not getting ahead of myself, because, as I say, it was meant to start badly, but I'm not in any way putting myself forward. I'm not saying that Russell Martin is definitely going to turn the corner and 100%. I'm just not sure that he's at the sacking stage yet. But this is the kind of game. This is the kind of game, or the kind of scenario. We beat Hibs the other day, that's fine. He's managed to beat a top flight team for Scotland. He's over that hurdle. Genk, they're struggling in the Belgian league. He'll be fine against them. He's all right at home. No. That was my 777th game at Ibrox on Saturday, and I didn't. According to, so it probably wasn't. It's probably nothing like that. But according to Footballogy, I've put in all the stats as best I can in Footballogy. But according to them, that was my 777th game at Ibrox. I had no idea about that, as I was talking to you about seeing Rangers. The first time I saw Rangers, it was against Hibs. We beat Hibs at home. I was 7 years old in 1977. And that was my 777. I don't know if 666 is the font of all evil. I don't know what 777 is. Is that lucky? I don't know. But I don't know if is the Russell Martin, Nico Raskin thing Is it resolved? Is it really resolved? There's signs that it is. You know, they had a wee hug at the end of the game, and Russell Martin is talking up Nico Raskin after it. But you've also got Nico Raskin's post-match interview. I don't know if he was struggling for the English, because it is a second language, even though he speaks it quite well. But he was definitely having a little pause, maybe to try and think how to say things diplomatically. But he was having to think about it. You know, I think he was tempted to try and say something about arch that would be, you know, he could cover himself, but would also put the message out there that he hates Russell Martin, and he was right. Whatever it was they fell out about. I'm puzzled as an old man. I'm puzzled, an unreconstructed football fan. I'm puzzled by Russell Martin talking, basically admitting that it was an issue, it was a thing. We could both have done better, but it's a learning process for both of us. I'm used to the kind of, you know, Yapstam said something about me. That's it. He's gone. No, Alec Ferguson. He's got to go. Roy Keane, greatest captain of all time, doesn't. He's gone because he's trying to undermine me. I'm kind of used to all that. And also, part of me thinks Russell Martin's being the gentleman here because he's trying to keep it all in house. But the phone celebration, I don't really know what was going on there. I know it's one it's used by other players, but I don't know if it has actually been completely resolved, because to me Nico Raskin wasn't really playing where he should have. But him not playing where he should have is why we scored the second goal at least. You know, and he did score the first goal, Nico Raskin, and it's the only 2 goals we've scored in our last 4 games. It's maybe still a bit of a standoff. Russell Martin looks like he's the one who's kind of properly compromising. Maybe that's not a good thing when the manager seems to be doing most of the compromising, and no one in the media, other than Neil McCann, and I watched it back when I come back for the game, the Sky coverage, the build up to the last Old Firm game. No one except Neil McCann seems to be entertaining the idea it could be Raskin. It could be Raskin's fault, and Raskin only put on that kind of game-winning show on Saturday because the stooshy surrounding his omission from the 2 previous matches turned the game against Hibs into yet another big game of the type and playing against Hibs is a big game for me most times. It's a kind of secondary Rangers Aberdeen, isn't it? And when Aberdeen are so bad, I mean, they're bottom of the league. Oh my God, they're miles away from us, Aberdeen. They're not even a concern now, Aberdeen. Imagine being that far down the league. Must be embarrassing for a Scottish club that's won the Cup Winners' Cup. But I think particularly when Aberdeen are doing so badly over recent decades, and Hibs are coming up, and they're obviously a massively traditional big club, Hibs by Scottish standards. So there is a bit of rivalry there, but I think it's always on the cusp of Rangers against Hibs of no really being seen as felt as a properly big game. Nico Raskin was very good in the one where we drew 2 each with Hibs at the end of last season, which we should have won, but he was nowhere to be seen when they beat us 2-0 at Ibrox the last time they played us in domestic competition at Ibrox. So I don't know if the only reason he's up to his game, it's one of those games that we'd normally disappear from, maybe Nico Raskin, but he's only upped his game on Saturday there, because it's all about him, because he's the returning star. Everybody sees his name's on the team sheet again, and he's trying to show the manager who's boss. When he turns it on versus Livy and Falkirk, when he's chasing back like he didn't do on Saturday, didn't he track his man in Saturday, which led to the first chance for Martin Boyle, and the chance that Boyle put over the bar before there was any scoring in the game. And when he's trying to show off that he shouldn't be playing the left hand side by doing big sweeping right foot, length of the pitch from his own half over to the far corner on the other side to the diminutive Mikey Moore, which leads to Hibs putting Boyle straight through to put the ball in the back of the net. Well, it's still 0-0, but it ends up of course he handled it, Boyle, so it didn't count. But when he's doing that when he's doing what he's supposed to do against Livingston and Falkirk in coming weeks, chasing back and not hitting wildly long balls, then I'll believe he gets it more than the manager, and that will benefit long term. He actually gets it in the same way that the manager gets it. I don't know. I'm really. It sounds churlish. I'm not being churlish. I just think it's something worth looking at, because I've been through this scenario before with various players who can turn it on and get the fans on their side, but ultimately they're always undermining. So maybe he's the reason the rest of the team looked so energised on Saturday compared to it was night and day. I know we weren't in any way perfect and were failing to create chances for the first 35 to 40 minutes of that game on Saturday against Hibs. I keep saying Sunday, I think I might, but it was Saturday night against Hibs there. But we looked so much more focused and up for it than we were in the Hearts game just 7 days previously. So maybe Nico Raskin coming back is he's a reason for that. But so many players who've just arrived, I think it's more likely to be what the manager was talking about in his pre-match presser today, which is that the team are just got a bit more chilled, having had a wee walk around Loch Lomond. Martin's team talk on Saturday, he was telling us after the game on Saturday that the protests were going on outside while he's giving the team talk in the pre-match team talk in the Ibrox home dressing room. I mean, WTF must that do to him? Was that what actually motivated the players, and how? Were they might do it for the manager because he was standing there giving them a team talk, despite the fact that people have got banners with his face on it and a big red cross through it, and they're calling for him to get to F. So were they wanting to do it for their gaffer, or were they wanting to do it because they were thinking that's just a matter of time till he gets sacked and Nico's back anyway? That's the real boost. Mikey Moore, he's not set the heather on fire yet, but selling him to Wales, my God, come on, get a move on, Rangers. Let's get this guy a proper international team. We've already had a decent kind of sample size of our European performance. So far, our performances at home in Europe are kind of 50 to 75% better than our performances away from home in Europe. Even just losing by 2 at home to Club Brugge before losing by 6 to them in the Jan Bredow. We need to take maximum advantage of Genk and Govan, because I think we'll take it to you. Your dump Teds of last season have pretty much gone. As I said, we've already got a kind of decent sample size thanks to Russell Martin getting us through 2 rounds of Champions League qualifying and into the playoff against a Bruges side who did, as he eventually mentioned today, they thumped Monaco 4-1, going on 5 or 6-1 last week in Matchday 1 in the Champions League group stage. Did Club Brugge. They're obviously a really decent side, but I'm not trying to excuse just how bad our performance was against them. There's a huge difference between Russell Martin turning things around and stopping the rot in the eyes of his doubters. That's all he's done so far. He's just kind of stopped the rot, really. But likewise, there's a colossal difference between me saying we can't sack him because he's absolutely the man for the job, which I'm not saying, and we can't sack him because everything we've heard about him and from him warned us that by this point in the season, not yet October, this is pretty much what we'd be playing like as a team and the kind of results we'd be getting. So we're actually on track, and we're clearly trying something much bigger than kind of slightly improving an existing squad with the same infrastructure as we had last season. So let's give this a bit longer, and what the hell do we have to lose anyway, other than our top flight status? I'm not saying he can do it, Russell Martin. I'm not trying to say that the man can do it. It's just because of a few days of talking about this, and you get folks in, responding to you quite beautifully, politely. I love everybody getting in touch, and I was obviously talking to the boys in Jersey the other night, and you find yourself getting pushed into a position because people assume if you're not slagging Russell Martin, quite rightly perhaps, people are assuming that if you're not slagging Russell Martin rotten, if you're not saying he's got to go, then you must think he's the man for the job, and I kind of do by default, I suppose, but it's more that we don't know yet. I just feel as if we don't really know yet, and he might be, and he's in there anyway, and it's his signings, and we were told this was how it was going to. I'm not saying that I wanted him in the first place, but having looked into his ethos and his previous jobs, I get why he's here, and I realise that what he wants to do is what we've all been screaming at Rangers to do for the past 4 years: develop a way to beat the low-blocking, possession-issuing, smaller domestic opponents. I know I keep saying this, but with the pressure heaped on the man, it just feels like crisis time all the time at Ibrox just now. I feel as if it's worth me pointing out my position or restating my position. To be honest, I was quite happy with what playing in the counter-attack meant for our form in Europe, and last season eventually what it meant for us playing at Parkhead as well. But I've had my fun. Let's do your thing now. Let's do your thing. Let's do that kind of, and it will require a tectonic plate shift. It will take time to do that thing that we all want to do, which is beat Dundee, beat Motherwell, beat St Mirren. No, be almost guaranteed to beat them all every time we play them, in like only Celtic and suddenly very rich Hearts would be a problem for us. That dream, I had that dream. It was years ago, 20 odd years ago. I don't know. I can't actually remember when my maternal grandmother died. My nana, I called her as my gran, my paternal grandmother, and my nana. That was my maternal grandmother. And she gave my mum a bit of a hard time, just in a way that old folk do in her final days. In fact, for her final decades, really. And I was kind of really upset on behalf of my mum. I thought she was kind of exploiting me. And it was my dad. My dad didn't scare easily. My dad'd been through things himself. Knows how to enjoy life and that kind of stuff because he knows it's short. And he used to, this is like 30 years ago probably, when he was working, still working, and I remember him going to see my mum at her mum's when there was one of her stooshies was going on, one of my nana's kind of freakouts. It was a real advanced, twisted kind of narcissism. So a power trip, really. Not any time, but sometimes my mum would want to go on holiday or something, and my nana would have a fall or something, and you just got to the point you thought it was all deliberate. But she would never help herself. She didn't want to use a stick or anything like that because that would be embarrassing for her, But she couldn't fucking walk. But she wanted my mum and my mum's sister, my auntie, to run after her and all that kind of thing. And they're just, trying to be good daughters. They were trying to do this with my dad. But the thing is, I never saw it. She was never bad to me, or my sister. We never. But I could see what it was doing to my mum, and she's getting dragged out there all the time, and it's just a typical. This happens to families everywhere, all over the world, all the time. But it was hard to watch when you were. I was like I was probably in my 20s anyway when she eventually died. But I remember at her funeral, at my nana's funeral, I'm standing by the graveside as her coffin was getting lowered in, and I fucking was just cussing her upside down. Well, internally, it wouldn't have been very politic for me to do it out loud. But internally, I was there to support my mum, who's suitably devastated at the loss of her mother. But I was just as she was getting lowered in, I was just like, if I was alone there, and I think I might have been. I only go getting. I'm just making sure you're definitely going down there. That's you. See you later. Just and worse in my head as she went down there. But about I don't know, maybe a year later, 2 years later, it wasn't that much later anyway. I had the first dream I'd ever had when I woke myself up shouting. I never had it. I don't really do that kind of thing. I have nightmares and that like everybody else, but I'm no a night terrors kind of person. Like that, I'm just usually too drunk or whatever. I've always plenty of food in me, so I pass out, get some wild dreams, but I'm always quite content and that kind of thing. And it was this. It was the house she stayed in originally when I used to go there all the time, and I'm kind of floating. I'm getting dragged, along just off my feet. And the doors are opening for me, in through the front door, and then into the hall. There's a light on. It's kind of half day, half night, and I'm just going to get dragged. And I know I'm going to go down to the living room, and I'm like, I know who's waiting in here for me. I know who. It was a house my nana lived in. Well, my mum lived in there. I think my mum and my auntie and that were born. When they were born, that's where they stayed. But my nana stayed there until my papa until I don't know, 1980 or something like that. And then when I was about 10 or whatever, then she moved up. They moved further up the street, but to a bungalow, because obviously their kids and that were out the house. But it was the old one I was going into, and it's the house she was in when she gave me my Ranger scarf. The Ranger scarf that I wear just now is my nana that got me it. And Lassie, the dog they had, used to always be jumping up this from my sister and I, and we loved going there. And she would always have great biscuits and that for us, and lemonade, and what the kids want, man. She's great to us. And I get dragged in, and as I turned this corner, I just get dragged round the corner, and there she was. She's sitting in the chair. She's sitting in the chair that she used to sit in. We used to go and visit. And I make it sound like a house of death and horror. It was great fun. That was before the bad stuff really started happening, which was still quite able, and that was still quite fit. That was it was a house of joy, with great fun as kids there, but it turned into something like Amityville. And she was just her sitting there in her chair, and she was looking at me with this face of, it's like confusion, but also, I'm going to get you. It's obviously just me psychologically. I'm feeling a deep set guilt as to what had happened. But I remember being like, "No, you're fucking no," and I'm shouting, you're not. And I was getting dragged towards her, and I woke myself up, and I'm like, kind of late 20s, maybe even early 30s, when I had this dream. And I wonder if that's what it is with the Union Bells. Just now, it's karma. It's bad. It was juju. It was bad juju. I hadn't really thought this through. I remember my dad one day when my nana was still alive going out to the house to try and intervene in something that was happening, and he come back. He just left my mum to it, and he come back and his works van come back to our house, and I was in, and I remember he looked ashen. I'd never seen my dad look like that before. He was sober, stone cold sober. If he hadn't been, that would have sobered, and he's just like, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it, because she was such a wee, tiny, frail-looking woman, almost. But apparently she went pure banshee when she lost it, and she lost it with her kids all the time, but never her grandkids. And it wasn't out of any kind of craving, trying to hide her real personality. She just loved us, and she was lovely to us. She would never have done it in front of us, so she cared for it. But is it really, I don't know, is it how the Union Bears are feeling? I'd created bad juju in my head, and I'd like the worst nightmare maybe I've ever had. The Union Bears, maybe they don't want to take it. They don't realise football, while like your club is a family, a family. It's a different kind of family. It's a kind of family you can't turn your back on your football club, no matter how abusive it gets, no matter how bad they are to you. You can't turn your back on your football club. That's a family you've got to stick with. Once it's gone, it's gone forever. Frustration is fine. Exclamations of frustration at the football are absolutely fine, probably healthy as well. But being unable to turn up because you can't take the pain anymore, okay, I mean that's understandable too. But mounting actual campaigns against your club when they've done nothing criminally wrong to you, they've just not been as exciting or hard-working or cohesive as you'd like them to be, that's bad karma. That's going to create bad karma. That's bad juju. You'll remember this. When your Rangers are, taking a wee kind of lap of one after pumping Celtic in the League Cup semi-final in November, and you want to suddenly feeling that you want to be the most loyal Rangers supporter on the planet, you'll just remember, fuck, I got that wrong. Or Heat 2, the follow-up to Heat, the sequel to my favourite. It's not my favourite movie, but it's the movie I'm kind of most intense about. Heat, Michael Mann, 1995, and then he wrote a book a few years ago. He co-wrote it with Meg Gardner at Heat 2, and it was like, this is obviously basically the script for the sequel, the follow. There'd been rumours that it was going to be a follow-up, but we're talking, this was 30 years ago. Heat was made. Why would you do a sequel? It's got to be different actors and all that, and you can't. It's not going to work because it's supposed to be going back in time before the events of Heat 1995. So De Niro and Pacino obviously can't play. Nobody can play the roles again they were playing. Nope, and it's supposed to go afterwards. Well, De Niro's character's dead in the next one, and Al Pacino, but it's like directly after, straight after, after the end of the film Heat. So it's going to have to be new. It's like there's Adam Driver they're talking about, and that fella that played Elvis, I think. Young dudes, so maybe that's why I'm unconvinced. But I read the book, I got the book, I was so excited. I thought, Heat 2, I'll get on board. No, because it's a way of keeping Heat alive. And I retweeted something that Meg Gardner, the person who wrote the book, co-wrote the book with Michael Mann, obviously the actual author, the proper crime writer. I retweeted one of her tweets with a funny wee, because you don't think the person's they're not going to have time to see your tweets, and I just put a wee funny thing. It was a reference to the film, it was a quote for the film, I can't remember what it was, and she retweeted it. She liked it and retweeted it, so I couldn't even go online after that to say the book was shit, by the way, because she would see it, and she's obviously such a nice person, hard-working person. I know what it's like trying to be creative and it failing, it fails for me just 2 or 3 times a week, really, so I couldn't slag somebody who just had one bad day, really, and she was probably forced into the bad stuff by Michael Mann, because he's thinking about the film he's going to make. So I just... And then I just saw yesterday, rumours had died down about it. It was like it wasn't getting financed. People hadn't been crazy about Ferrari, Michael Mann's last film, which is a great film. It's a really good film. Not a great film, it's a really good film. But people weren't crazy about it, the financiers of movies. So I thought it was going to happen, and I was kind of relieved. It's like With Neil and I. If there's a follow-up to With Neil and I, it'd be interesting enough. But I don't know. Is it maybe going to end up insulting the original? It's like, basically, Godfather 3 has traumatised me. for life. That wasn't that long after Godfather. Now when I look back, but at the time it felt as if it was long enough. But after Godfather 2, but it just that was one of the was horrendous. Cause Godfather 3 was just one of the most depressing times I ever spent in the cinema. I don't want to see the same thing happening to Heat, but Michael Mann's saying he's now saying filming's going to start taking place next year, 2026. They're going to be doing this sequel. And he said it was a brand now. He said Heat had become a brand because so many people loved it. And I thought, is that all I'm now? Am I just like one? It's like a franchise he's starting. He's in his 80s now. You know, I'm not saying I'm hoping he dies before he gets a chance. I'll probably die before Michael Mann's more focused and fit than me. But I kind of hoped maybe he would just let it go. But he's actually wanting to go for the full franchise thing and start. I mean, he's trying to say I'm the same as the guys that just love all the Marvel movies and the Avengers and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not against that stuff, but most of the guys that are heavily into it are wanks, aren't they? I mean, they are tossers. You know, they really are like horrible people, really. Usually get kind of like shitty management jobs or something like that. Whereas I think Heat because you think it's real, you know, and it's a movie, so it can't be real, but it's kind of based on real stuff, and it's real. But no, it's just going to be another franchise. We're going to have Heat 2 and Heat 3 and Heat Cubed or whatever it is. Heat to the power of Kelvin Pi or something. I can't. But I'm kind of. But I'm going to have to get on with it. I'm going to have to back it up because that's my film. You know, that's the movie I support. I just don't know that I've got the emotional bandwidth. I think the reservoir of belief may be drained for Fat Eight here. My positivity about kind of doubtful or doubted causes may be stretched to breaking already with everything that's going on or not going on at Rangers just now. If I was to get the call from the kind of bowel screening folk, the guys of my age have to get in touch with every couple of years. Mr. Anderson, don't panic. But just can you just come in? Can you just come in to see us? I'd probably have to scrap all vestiges of positivity about Rangers and about Heat to a sequel to Heat, just to get myself out of bed in the morning. Maybe that's what it is. With the Union Bears, I can afford patience. No, because with Rangers, but these boys can't. Football is the game of the people. And in this kind of post-Brexit dystopia, life for ordinary folk is harder than ever. Maybe you don't have room to trust Rangers or believe in them, believe in what Russell Martin's doing with them. I mean, you've told everyone you know that you're a Rangers supporter, that you support Rangers. You've got the season ticket, you wear the tops, you wear the scarf, you have the fights and the arguments with folk at your work and all that, you defend Rangers all the time. You are Rangers. But there's nothing else, you know, except work, family and recreational drugs, and none of that is going well either. You know, I've been there, man. I've been there. You just want Rangers to win and do it now because you've got nothing spare. You get nothing spare to give, and you can't lash out at your workmates because apparently it's a sacking offence if you hit them or anything like that. You can't take it out on your family because that's your family, and you want to, you know, you don't want to be that kind of person, and you just, you know, you can't get too drunk, you can't get too just so you don't want to spend your whole life concentrating on the drugs and all that. You want the drink, you know, as you try and get something. Alan McGee, you know, he packed it on to follow Rangers more intensely. That's what you're trying to do, and it's just getting thrown back in your face. So, Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marath may have no intention of sacking Russell Martin if he draws on Thursday, or if he loses. But I'll begin to kind of sack it spiritually, emotionally, if he loses heavily, and by all accounts, by Rangers Review interviews, Genk are in much the same position as ourselves, so I can't blame. It's tempting for me to just, I'm not on board with the protests and the printing up banners and printing up placards. It's not even October yet, but I'm maybe just for the first time in my life realising I'm a lucky bastard and that I've got a certain few other things going on, and that's just given me the strength to be able to tolerate what's happening. And plus, being the age I am, and we're getting older. I remember Rangers winning 9 in a row. I remember Rangers. I really enjoyed Walter Smith's second period and his first. All of it, you know. I was there for so much. Especially the second period, I was there practically all the time. Been at European finals, watching Rangers of Champions League away from home, now last minute equalisers against Porto, and I've seen that recently as well. But just league titles coming in as well, cups and all that. So maybe it's this is how the kids are feeling. I just see protests at like West Ham about Brady and Sullivan, whatever they're called, and the protests at Parkhead even about their board because they've only won 14 out of the last 15 league titles and stuff like that. He says everybody's just protesting about stuff like that just now because it's much easier to deal with than the real proper shit that's going on in life. But folk are so busy dealing with their own proper shit that they don't have time to. They just need their football team to help them out and give them a bit of joy, So I'm trying not to be too. I see myself as being a bit more hardcore, a bit more stoic, and a bit more. I'm a Ranger. I know what supporting your team's actually all about because I was gone in the late 70s, early 80s. I grew up when when there was 5,000 folk turning up for games at Ibrox and we hadn't won a title for 9 years. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm in honest about a spoiled big git who's totally indulging himself. And a lot of these young boys, young dudes are going home and away. Europe, domestic games. I've never been an away domestic game in a decade, I don't think. So. Genk, see, in the same kind of position as we are just now, right down to the fact that they've got a guy that they thought they were going to be selling this summer, the way that we did with, ironically, a Belgian player who started at Gent, Nico Raskin, but Genk had a former Old Firm striker, the South Korean striker who was supposed to be a kind of 20-30 million euro deal, a big move lined up to VfB Stuttgart, and it fell to pieces because of a really dodgy, on Stuttgart's part, and a really kind of pernickety kind of question they had after his medical, and the whole deal fell through, so he wasn't expecting to be there this season. I feel as if that's what's going on with Nico Raskin. I think it's actually more a case of Russell Martin didn't expect Nico Raskin to still be there after the summer. I don't know if the Korean striker who was at Celtic and had a great season last season by all accounts with Genk, I don't think he's fallen out with his manager in, but it's certainly not helped the start of their season. It's also that I can't help doing this, but it's the beware of Belgians bearing Greeks. Christos Zolis, who I saw at Ham, beware of Greeks bearing a first leg lead for you when they come to Hampden. There you go. You're winning 1-0 for you. The Nations League relegation playoff. Scotland have never been relegated at this point in time. In March, when I went to Hampden for the second leg of the. I've only ever missed a couple. The only time I've missed a Nations League game at Hampden was during COVID again. So I've been to them all, and there was Scotland got a fantastic record in the Nations League. Just promoted, just stay promoted again, right up to the top league, League 8, and started off badly, but get better and better, right up to the point where a cross of the century from John Souttar to Andy Robertson's head wins in Warsaw in injury time to relegate Poland, who'd won at Hampden earlier in the tournament, and put us into the relegation playoff with the Greeks. And we go to Piraeus Olympiacos Stadium, we win 1-0 there. And then they come to Hampden, they beat us 3-0. In the second leg on the Sunday, I'm at that one. I was there. Christos Zolis, this guy who plays for Bruges, he scores one of the goals for Greece that day at Hampden to put Scotland out, to relegate Scotland and keep Greece in the League A in the Nations League. And he plays for Club Bruges, and he sets up 2 of their 3 goals they score at Ibrox in the first leg of that Champions League playoff, and he scores 1 and sets up another one. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists across the 2 legs against Rangers in that Champions League. And now we've got Konstantinos Karestas, 17 years old. He won't be 18. Lamine Yamal, he's only 17 years old, not anymore. So this is the new guy that's only 17 years old. He'll be 18 in November, but he's the wunderkind. He also scored in that game. His first game for Greece. He came on as a sub in the first leg against Scotland in that Nations League relegation playoff. I think it was his first start was the second leg at Hampden. He scores against us. He scored 1 of the 3 goals that day. So I'm fully expecting him to come. There's no game in Genk. It's the new format of the Europa League group stage, where we're only playing one team at home and another team away. It's 4 home games, 4 away games, none of them against the same club. I'm fully expecting him to score then, because that just seems to be. We've even got beware of Greeks bearing your Champions League progress, but they'll come in and take your striker, one of your best European strikers away for you. Whereas, Cyril Dessers, who played for Genk and is born in Belgium, is helping us put Panathinaikos out of the Champions League qualifiers, and then Panathinaikos come back and buy him before the end of the transfer window, and he's away over there now. But it's just all kind of tied in together and really mixed up. But this chap, Konstantinos Karestas, he's a kind of wunderkind for Greek football. He was born in Genk. He comes from Genk. He's Belgian born. I don't know if his parents or grandparents that are Greek, but he's chosen to play for Greece. I mean, the Belgian team is pretty hard to get into, but he's quite a player. So watch out for him tomorrow night. Aye, it's just aye, they've been in the relegation zone, drawn a lot of their games, but they've only had one previous tie in Europe this season. As I say, they lost 2-1 at home to Lech Poznan in that Europa League playoff, but they won 5-1 in Poznan in the first round. They need a result, like we need a result. We need to keep getting results. I think their manager say, Frank, he's on the cusp of getting sacked, so maybe they need the result more. And they certainly know how to. They've only had one previous tie in Europe. This will be our fourth, so maybe we're a bit more drained than they are in that respect. But they certainly know how to win away from home in Europe. Under Russell Martin, we know how to win at home, but not against Belgians. It's just when you think, yeah, but these are much easier Belgians, that things, as I say, can get much harder. The press conference today, the manager's presser, BBC's Brian McLaughlin hits him straight away with, he must be so relieved, really milking it, really OTT. Oh, that's a great result on Saturday. Oh, it's just taking do you feel like a relieved man? Do you feel, basically trying to get him to say, oh, my job was in the line and it was terrible, I can't believe I got away with it. But he kept kind of pushing the sense of relief. But Russell Martin wasn't having it without being wound up or by reacting and anything like that. He's not surprised by the level of criticism, said Russell Martin today in the pre-match presser. He knows the size of the club. I say today, it'll be Thursday, you're watching this, sorry, on Wednesday. He's not surprised by the level of criticism because he knows the size of the club and how passionate the fans are, and he actually kind of perversely enjoyed the criticism. Everything for Russell is a learning process. The difference is where he was, not confrontational, but I think it's a point he's pushing. Was he said, no, the difference came after the trip to Loch Lomond, not just the win over Hibs. That's when he could feel a lightness. There was a lightness to the players in the last 10 days. It was just the win against Hibs on Saturday. So he's restating this fact that the trip to Loch Lomond was a great thing to do. That was what the team needed. They did the right thing. That trip they were really slagged for, which I mean Celtic had Yogi Hughes, two different Yogi Hughes, Celtic, and we've got it's a Yogi. He's just been promoted as being a Yogi. He's some sort of mystic or wannabe mystic as far as the tabloid attitudes in Glasgow were concerned, for Russell Martin for taking his players a walk up a hill and for a bit of a dip and a loch just to get them away from the grind, the oppressive grind of a Rangers team under pressure. Being Rangers life when you're under pressure, I thought it was quite good. It was good of him to say that today. He said the players were not enjoying it, the process. Really, it's been difficult for them to maintain a sense of self, he said, which, they became a bit robotic as they had to go from kind of game to the next game in the intense opening period of the season, rather than having time to digest each game and maybe break it down in the training pitch or whatever he's what to do. It's just basically the intensity of the schedule, which he should have known. He does know about, and as a criticism of Russell Martin, that he keeps talking about how many games we've had to play as if it's a surprise to him, but maybe he's trying to remind us that we only had so many games to play because he did win a couple of rounds of European qualification, but it's a win or bust tie, wasn't it? It was a season-defining game, the one against Panathinaikos. He won that and get zero praise for it, so maybe having to remind us This is why he took him to Loch Lomond. It's a little pause. I think he's kind of maybe a bit bitter about. He was talking about the ex-pros telling him in the media that he need to take him for a pint or take him to play golf. You can't do that these days. You can't do that these days. A bigger slagging. If you played golf, you're definitely enjoying yourself. That's a jolly, isn't it? As is definitely having pints. That's ruining your health as well. It's unforgivable in the modern game. So he was making his point there, I think, about the wee trip to Loch Lomond. That's basically what got him the win against Hibs. He did the right thing, is what Russell Martin was saying. He's excited to have this group of players to work with, especially now that he can focus on the games totally because the transfer window's closed. The Europa League, what's your attitude towards it? He was asked, we're in it, we're going to attack it. It'd be daft to make predictions about how we'll do. He's not going to say that we're going to win the Europa League or anything like that, but any competition we're in, we're going to try and win. He's saying, and the Europa League, the obvious objective is to qualify from the group. That'll be his focus, but his instant focus on the park, or in terms of the mechanics of the competition, but his main focus is to see his team looking more like he wants them to look by the end of the campaign. Whenever that end comes, and it's going to be at least an 8-game campaign, so they should be developing. It has to strive now to build energy and momentum and consistency, and with the fans as well. So everybody's in on it. It's part of this big team, big family. That's very much the message coming from Russell Martin. Everybody's got to get the fans want them on board and the momentum, because he's been asked about the fans, the fact that there's not going to be many fans there. Tomorrow night, again, it's going to be a kind of low crowd, but instead of they've not sold as many tickets as you would usually expect to sell, even for a game that's maybe, I wouldn't say it's unglamorous, I wouldn't insult Genk that way. Because apart from anything else, at least it's a team I haven't seen before. I quite like that. It's somebody up. That's the whole point of European football. It's bad enough in Scotland now that we've done the journey up through the leagues. Even seeing Alloa at Ibrox isn't even that kind of quaintly exciting the way it used to be when you got a lower league team in one of the cup competitions, because we're sick of the sight of them. They've done us real damage, Alloa, in the league, and infamously, I mention it about every 2 minutes, that Challenge Cup semi-final when we're 2-0 up and we lost 3-2 after next before we even got to extra time in that game. Devastating. So it's bad enough in Scotland we've seemed to have played everybody in the last few years. As far as an old man like me is concerned, just feels like the last few years. But in Europe is supposed to be the exotic kind of option. But now we're playing. This is the third time we've played Braga. It's going to be, I think, the fourth time in our history that we've played Porto. It's the third time I've seen us playing Porto. I missed the first one. Borussia Dortmund, I think we've played them 5 times in Europe, and it's getting to that point you're starting to see the same clubs again and again in Europe. And they're usually, there's enough. You've not seen them for a few years, and they're always pretty exciting. It's always different players and that to look at. But it's nice to see if Genk might not be a European finalist, and that's because I think I like to bag European finalist clubs, but at least they are something different, a team that we haven't seen before. But he just went straight. He wasn't going to slag the low crowd. He just went straight to praising the atmosphere for the Panathinaikos game at Ibrox and for the Polzenia game at Ibrox, 2 games that we won. Handily, quite entertainingly. And he said on Saturday the crowd were great against Hibs, and he wasn't surprised it was full. It wasn't full because it was a cup game, not on the season ticket. So he's getting his wee excuses in there as well. He does defend himself. He is quite good at twisting things, even though he tries to come across Mr. Self-effacing, Mr. Open and Honest. But I was making that excuse as well, so I can't slag Russell Martin. It's not on the season ticket, it's on the telly. It's like 5:45 a Saturday night, terrible kick-off time. 35,000, not a bad crowd. But the ownership, they've been great to him. He's getting asked, basically, Andrew Kavanagh was over at the weekend. Did he tell you, you've just saved your job, Martin, you clown? He's like, no, everybody was lovely. He's... the board, the owners, just absolutely no problems. You get Belgian opposition again. Russell, he's been asked by, I don't know who, in the press pack, is it a kind of chance for catharsis or a bit of revenge even after what happened against Bruges? He doesn't see it like that at all. That's not what it's about. But it was a really difficult night, and he took a pause here, and it's quite a steely little statement he made. He says it was a really difficult night, in Bruges, and we won't ever feel like that again. It's quite a promise to make, but we won't ever feel like that again. Because that won't happen again. So I don't know if that's him blaming Nico Raskin or whatever. I don't know who. he couldn't get on the park at the start. Maybe Raskin didn't want to play that night. He only came on as a sub. I don't know, but aye, that was a wee statement there. In terms of the injuries, team news: Joe Rothwell was back after his injury in the Hearts game. He was very positive about his display against Hearts, which was 15 minutes long. It wasn't very positive. He just said he did really well when he came on, and he did. I was positive about Joe Rothwell against Hearts as well. And I was trying not to set up this thing where it's Joe Rothwell because he's got the number 6 jersey. He is the replacement for Raskin. So everybody's gone, Joe Rothwell is no Nico Raskin. So that's you failed straight away. She failed straight away, Russell Martin. But I don't know if Russell Martin actually does think he is the replacement for Nico Raskin. But he's talking about Lyle Cameron will be back next week. Probably back in the squad next week. He's got a slight injury. Dujon Sterling, Rabbi Matondo, they're both back on the grass training, but a long way to go before they're even properly training. Never mind back in the team. But he was talking about how Joe Rothwell, Max Aarons, and Nasser Giga, they found it more intense, Rangers. They found the schedule and the scrutiny much more intense than they expected when they came here. They're still all kind of settling in. It was hints that him and his staff and his signings have been kind of hit like a tidal wave by our impatience as a support. They haven't been welcomed like saviours in any way, shape or form. You know, Russell Martin and his staff and his new players. We're just like, we need trophies. We eat trophies. We eat silverware, and we're starving. Get us fed. Just get us fed. It's a situation he's got himself into, and he was talking, he keeps talking obliquely about the Nico Raskin situation, obviously trying not to go into any details about it, saying how he really enjoys. They've got a great working relationship, He was talking about that after the game on Saturday. Contrary to popular opinion, we've got a great working relationship, blah, blah, blah. But I could have learned stuff. I've learned stuff from it. He could learn stuff from it. So I think it's maybe overwhelmed them all the new guys, including the owners, the board, and the managers, the manager and his staff. University Challenge was on Monday night. I didn't realise University Challenge had started again. I must have been doing something last Monday. I think the Monday before that was Scotland were playing Belarus, and I was watching that. And I just came in, I sat in the living room and just flicking through the channels, and I see my wife going, "Oh no, University Challenge, oh God. This means I've got to tell him he's done really well to answer the one question out of 40. I was like, all right, and like about the second or third question, it was maybe 10, 15 minutes into the programme. And I'm like, oh, it's University Challenge. I think I was eating something at the time as well. Shocker, innit? I'm making excuses here. And up come the second or third question they asked, but was the question I've been waiting for like my entire adult life. It was basically name these members of the Frankfurt School. And the first one's Theodore Adorno, who is basically the John Gregg of the Frankfurt. I was so stunned that this question had come up. I don't read things because I actually want to learn, and I only read things because I want to have a chance to show off. I don't know anything about the Frankfurt School. I just know their names. And like, it must be really cool being that kind of professor, being like, well, Frankfurt, but it must be really cool getting hunted out your own country by the Nazis and stuff like that, and having to do a runner and wondering why Marxism hadn't worked and stuff like that. But I just think I just like it like a gossipy level. These guys, So I'm the kind of person that they made The Brutalist for. That the Brutalist, so I could sit and go, have I got that right? Oh, it's a Marcel Breuer chair. It's supposed to be him. Bit of Goldfinger and that in there as well. So I'm like, I recognise the references. I'm getting the references. That's the only reason I get into all these things. I don't actually know anything about the Frankfurt School's work and like that. I just know their names and what kind of money they had and how they died and stuff. But I wasn't ready though. I was just. They couldn't even. I got the next two. I mean, I did get the next two. Marcuse and Walter Benjamin. They couldn't even pronounce the Waynes that go all them all right on University Challenge. Herbert Marcuse. It's Marcuse. Because I've watched so many podcasts about the Frankfurt School, I at least know how to pronounce the names. But that's what happens when it comes, where really. I mean, it's like John. If I was sitting there, you're sitting there, you're watching University Challenge. I'm sitting there, and they go, "Who captained Rangers when they won the cup? It started for 10. The captain of Rangers when they won European Cup Winners' Cup in 1972, and they get, is it Greek? Grieg? John Greig, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. John Greig, yeah, I'll give it John Greig. It's like that, Marcus. They don't know what they're talking about. I know the guy's name properly, but it just came at me so fast. I wasn't, and I just choked on the open goal, as they say in Wayne's World, choked in the open net. But that's it. When it comes out in a way you're no ready for, you will stutter, you will stammer. It doesn't mean you don't know, you don't have the knowledge. You just need to settle in. Now, it's the first university challenge of the season for me. It's not an excuse. I got it wrong, and that's all there is to it. But just like the new Rangers players and the manager should have got it right against Motherwell, against St Mirren, home to Dundee and Hearts. But unlike me on Monday, they'll get another chance. They'll get the Frankfurt School question again. They get it every game they play. They get it twice a week, really, from now until Christmas and beyond. They'll get more chances, and instantly. Hibs was one. Genk is another. But is this Clermont versus St Mirren after winning 3-1 at Hearts? Delayed the kind of inevitable after Queen's Park. Is this Michael Beale versus Aberdeen after Betis and Motherwell delayed the inevitable after Celtic at home and Kilmarnock away at the start of that season? I don't know. It remains to be seen. The team, for me, it's Saturday starting 11, except Ant-Man for Mikey Moore. Same starting 11 as against Hibs, but just Ant-Man in for the toiling Mikey Moore, although he did technically set up the goal. The second goal for Majovski. He does read the game quite well, Mikey Moore. He seems playing himself into it, but I think he needs a wee rest, and I want to see Ant-Man's directness. I want us to go out there and try and blow them away tomorrow. The score, I'm quite looking forward to see. I'm not trying to avoid the issue. I'm quite looking forward to see if Nico Raskin is as disciplined, more disciplined in that left-hand side. And the Rangers women, Kim Shin-ji, she made the same phone celebration when she scored the fourth goal against Partick Thistle up at Springburn a couple of weeks ago. She made the same phone celebration. It's not, maybe not be any day with Russell Martin. You might not be having a go. I'm going to say we'll win 3-1, but I'm actually... I'm not going to bother. I'll get to the score. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's time I think it's time I ended this pod. So here we go. Right. It's a great opportunity for a win, and also a great opportunity to stave off kind of straight away another unwinning run in another competition at the very first hurdle. I don't want to go into like Celtic drew the night with Red Star Belgrade or Caravanas Vezda Belgrade away from home. It's good, and that's going to be a factor this season. I was talking about that in Jersey the other night. They're in the same actual competition as us this season. And we're in the same league. We're in two leagues together this season, ourselves and Celtic. Only 12 teams in the SPFL Premiership, 36 teams in this one. But that's the result we'll be looking for straight after our own. And Celtic have got in there first, I think, with a decent point away from home against Red Star, who were put in there. They get put out by Paphos of Cyprus in the Champions League playoffs. So it's anyway, that's going to be a thing. But for us if we lose this game or draw this game, the idea that we've not got a win, I want to get that out of the way straight away. The possibility of we still don't have a win in the league is what I'm trying to say. The domestic league. So let's not have that problem in the Europa League, especially against a team that are kind of struggling in their own league just now in Genk. It's not so much about positivity as continuing this abeyance of negativity that we've got. There's been so much bad feeling towards Russell Martin, so many poor performances under this team. I think those poor performances are part of the process, but there's no doubt that the ill feeling isn't going to go away just because we beat Hibs and then Genk, but it's about stopping it metastasising any further. Just keep it in abeyance just now. So here's hoping Rangers can maintain Saturday's positivity, start to put together something that looks and feels like a run of winning form. Even a draw versus Genk would feel like a huge gunk. Listen, I've this is my fourth pod in 6 weeks. So if you don't like my patter, really, I don't care. I'm done. No, I was posting a post match. Right? I'm not even going to go at the game. Actually, no. See if you're just going to sneer at my patter. That's it. I'm trying my heart out here. I'm giving it absolutely everything. That's it. I'm not going to. Gunk. I told you. This is you don't like it, I'm not even going to go to the game, never mind in a post-match reaction pod, because I've got so many better things to do. I told you I kind of know stuff about the Frankfurt School and other posh stuff like that. I watch University Challenge. Sometimes I get 2-3 questions right in University Challenge. That's a single episode. A single episode, by the way. So I'm a man of parts. I've a lad of parts. I'm a man of parts. I'm a man of the world. I've got so many other options. Tomorrow night I could. So many pals and so many things I could. I'll see you. I'll see you after the game. My post-match reaction pod for outside Hibs. Okay, we'll try that again. We'll try a professional ending. Right? We'll try. Okay, listen. Here we go. I've wrote this down. This is the professional ending. I'm going. Okay. Nobody's going to see us anyway because nobody's watching a 2-hour podcast in the day of the game. You know, it's kick-off's at 8:00. This is our 4th straight home game. Genk is our 4th straight home game. We had 0-0 with Celtic, 0-2 versus Hearts, 2-0 versus Hibs. All very symmetrical, very patterned, very Scottish intercity, very traditional domestic opposition. This Thursday, it's Europe, and it's a club that wasn't even formed until 1988, the year when Celtic, the youngest of our recent domestic opponents, were celebrating their centenary. And I can't help feeling the score will be equally clangingly different, crazy even. But it says it all for Russell Martin's embryonic Rangers reign that, square brackets, take a deep breath, deepen your voice, and deepen your gaze at the camera. It says it all for Russell Martin's embryonic Rangers reign that I have no idea if this will be a crazy good or a crazy bad result. Win 5-1, lose 5-1, draw 5-5. I just don't know, right? I just don't know. We just want some sort of routine, right? We want to know what to expect when we watch Rangers. We're not looking for that kind of excitement. We're not looking for, that's so unpredictable, the unexpected. No. We're looking for predictability. Well, your last 3 European games, you've lost them, so maybe that's the kind of, no that kind of predictability, that win kind of predictability. That's what excites Rangers fans. That's what excites us, and everybody else, anybody who says that they like their team being unpredictable, it's just a flipping liar. I can't tell the difference between Crawley and Stevenage. I can't tell the difference between the 3 Bronte sisters. I can't tell the difference between the 2 Congos. The main thing with Rangers right now is I can't tell if it's New York or fucking New Year. Could we just get this game won, the Mora, get Livingston pumped on Sunday, and that's it. 3 straight wins, 3 different competitions. We can finally start making out that the rest of the season before this was just the slow start, and we're finally going to get a paracetamol, got a Tylenol.